Donald Trump probably would have come up with the money, but the size of the judgment, the shock of it, that was of huge political value to Donald Trump. The idea that New York Democrats, the courts, the judges, they're all out to get him, that the left are weaponizing government against him. It is one of the most powerful arguments with voters. Judging by poll after poll, Trump has benefited from the cases against him. He said as much himself at his presser today.
Going through this weaponization of our government to try and knock out somebody's political opponent, and so far, based on the polls, it's not working at all. They're all trying to damage Trump as much as possible. It's having the reverse effect, but maybe someday it won't. I don't know. But it's having the reverse effect.
So Trump can continue to say that the courts and the whole system are all rigged against him, but it's just as easy for Joe Biden to say this proves the courts aren't rigged against him because they just ruled in Trump's favor. Biden can say, look, they gave Trump this big legal lifeline. This shows not weaponization of the justice system, but actually how that the legal system works, that it's legitimate. The idea of being persecuted is central to Donald Trump's campaign. It's an argument which even his most bitter primary opponents like Ron DeSantis have tried to find common ground on with MAGA voters. But today, it was contrary to that narrative. 5 judges ruled in his favor in a way that he went out and praised. And that is a gift to Joe Biden, no? Because even if you don't agree with what the court did or that this decision will be outweighed by Trump's other legal perils, it's still an easy case for the Biden campaign to make on the trail. An example for them to say, point and say, look, see, told you, it's a win for Trump financially. It's definitely the outcome he was hoping for. But when it comes to the arguments being made ahead of the November vote, it really might have been a bigger PR win for President Biden. I lied before. I said I was waving off Mick Mulvaney. He's actually back with us. Former acting Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation political contributor. Mick, how could I not have you in on this? So, look, that's my opinion. Who do you think won bigger today here? Was it Donald Trump or Joe Biden? You get my argument.
I do, and I listen. The one thing I agree with is I think the kids are probably scratching their head about the babies comment. But look, you're right in a sense, and in that yes, the Biden team can look at that. But if the Biden team wants to raise this issue, Jesse, then they have to look at the underlying lawsuit. And you and I have talked about this before on various programs in NewsNation, that this is a lawsuit that probably would never have been brought in the first place against anybody other than Donald John Trump. Keep in mind, there was no victims here. The banks got paid early. In fact, I think Goldman Sachs
to go into the legal case, we can go into the legal case, but I've also made the point, look, is it a possibility that this could be overturned on appeal? Absolutely. But in terms of the judgment, in terms of the collection efforts, Donald Trump is not necessarily being treated differently. If someone doesn't pay or doesn't have the funds to pay, collection efforts in terms of going after the bank accounts, going after the properties, that's all legitimate. What I'm saying here is Donald Trump has always said this is everyone against him, and yet the very system that he has called corrupt helped him today.
So 2 things about that. In order to make that case, you have to talk about the underlying charges against Trump on this case, which are flimsy to begin with. But let's see if we can agree on this, which is even if you're correct, and you might be for a short period of time, the argument goes away as soon as the next trial starts. And the other thing to happen in New York today was that they set the trial for the Stormy Daniels hush money case, which is also very, very weak against Donald Trump. One of the weakest cases probably against him. And as soon as that starts, what, a month from now, Trump will be able to once again trot out this argument that he is a victim of a weaponized legal system. So I get what you're saying. And if the Biden team wants to sort of figure out a way to take advantage of this, I would too if I were they.
I think it's a question of credibility, right? If he can make the argument, people will believe it without even reading one page of the lawsuit. They'll say, oh my gosh, another thing against him, $464 million, 4 different criminal cases. Well, he just got a win today, and I wonder if he's ultimately acquitted in a New York trial, if that would be the same thing. You know, he can't make the argument that everyone's out to get him, but I don't know.
Well, it is, but look, I'll put my Donald Trump hat on. I know the man a little bit. If he's acquitted in New York under, say, the Stormy Daniels hush money case, he's going to say, look, it proves it. It was nothing to begin with. It was politically motivated to begin with. So in a certain sense, and I know this sounds contrived, the man wins when he wins and wins when he loses, and that's just the nature of Donald Trump. He is the ultimate not only Teflon, but he's sort of the trampoline president. You try and throw something at him and it bounces right off of him every single time. Keep in mind, when he rolled out his campaign in November of 2022, right after the midterm elections, it fell flat. No one was paying attention to him. Everybody's looking at Ron DeSantis and other Republican challengers. And here we are just over a year later, and the man has steamrolled to the nomination using, in large part, these cases against him.
Absolutely. Before the New York case in March, he wasn't seeing these numbers. They definitely jolted to his campaign, to say the least, and it's definitely helped him. Just a different kind of way of looking at it, something that came into our minds.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.